Alright, Zooey, my Vrusk friend. How many cards do you want? You don't want any cards? You just saw what the man did last round? You don't want any cards? The dealer's taking two. Okay, Zooey. What do you got? The man has a full house and he knew it! The man had a full house and he knew it! How about that? Well, that'll teach me. Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're in the Space Casino where we've got some cards with us because we're talking Star Frontiers. And very specifically, a thing that I talked about back in the 80s with a guy, and it's with regards to the Vrusks. As per the title of this video, don't play poker with a Vrusk. This is actually a combination of conversations I had back in 1986, not long after the game came out actually, with a qualified biologist about the Vrusks, the species, the aliens from Star Frontiers, and something kind of lodged in my head for decades that I always thought, yeah, there's one characteristic about the Vrusks that I guess you're just never gonna have a solution for, or it's something locked in with their biology and something that makes them alien and cool, but it's surely gonna cause problems for some players or GMs and some referees in some scenario. There's gonna be a scenario where this comes up, but in recent years, a couple of examples have actually defied the biology. So let me roll this back. Let me describe. So why am I saying don't play poker with a Vrusk? Because their faces are completely chitinous. They have hard shell exterior faces, and they express no emotions. So they would be fantastic at playing poker. They don't give out any tell. They have sculpted facial expressions that never change. They're going to be perfect. They're going to be masters at playing poker. They're going to be masters at bluffing. They're going to be masters at lying all the time, which would maybe explain their corporate culture. But we won't get into that. It was something that it was locked into me. Okay, yeah, Vrusks have no easy ability to express themselves. And I started thinking, there's got to be a downside to that. Sure, it sounds great here in the casino to be able to say, hey, don't play poker with them because they're masters of it. They haven't got to tell. There's nothing in their face that would express, oh man, I got nothing in my hands. But there's got to be negatives to that. There's got to be scenarios, because you see it in drama films all the time, where somebody in a peak moment of the story doesn't want to give away their emotions and yet can't help it because they're only human, and that drives a plot forward. And I thought, a Vrusk character is going to have problems in that department. If you are making it so that a Vrusk has this stoic, never-changing expression on their face, that's going to cause, at some level, that's going to be a challenge for a referee. I'm sure of it. But, as I say, in recent years, this was all changed out for me by video games. I'm going to bring up a couple of examples. Now, onto the expression thing. I always thought to myself, okay, they're not inhuman. Okay, technically they are. I mean the phrase, they're not inhuman. These are beings that are able to have and experience emotions. They're not Vulcans. They don't lock themselves down. They're Vrusks. There's nothing in the rule book. Maybe in your campaign it's different. But there's nothing in the rule book that says Vrusks are cold and analytical and never feeling. I imagine there must be Vrusks who lose their temper. There must be Vrusks who are conniving and evil. I'm sure there are Vrusks who are heroic. I've talked about how when my players met the Equalizer in my campaign, he was a Vrusk. So there are, to give this player character alien race some dimension, some depth. I always imagine, no, the Vrusks are not, they're not a cold-hearted species. Well, maybe they are. I mean figuratively, I don't mean like biologically. They're not mean and incapable of emotion. So they do have the problem of their face. Now, what do I mean by that? In 1988, I worked at Jodrell Bank Visitors Center. That is actually me. And I was, I've already talked about Jodrell Bank when I talked about, that's how big an assault scout really is. It was a very cool experience for me. While working there, though, there was a guy who was a qualified, university graduated biologist by trade. And he was working summers with us, and he really enjoyed how there were, kids' school trips would come in, and, he would be showing them all about the planets and the universe and all that kind of stuff that the visitor center was about. But because his more speciality was biology, he would lean into, what is it like on alien planets? What does the atmosphere of Mars like? Could we ever grow plants on there? That type of thing. His name was Tony Oldfield. I don't know if there's any way in heck he's ever going to see this video, but if he does, hello Tony. I still remember the conversation you and I had. Because I remember bringing in my Alpha Dawn rulebook and flipping through, because I was huge into the game. I didn't have any players yet, but I was huge into it. I had left my campaign back in Canada, looking for new players, and he was interested. What is this Star Frontiers thing? I've heard of Star Trek and Star Wars. What is Star Frontiers? Well, I'll bring you in the book. And he would flip through it, and I remember him looking at the aliens. First page, when you open up the book, there's the Dralicites, and he was like, that's an interesting idea. Kind of cool, big giant amoeba. There's interesting elements there. Then he flipped the page, and he saw the humans, and he laughed, and he said, nope, not possible. Moving on. And then he came across the Vrusks, and he was like, there's problems with that design. I was like, really? He was like, yeah, it doesn't... I'm going to talk about this in a future video, but the T angle sort of square, the way their body is, torso here, abdomen, no, thorax here. No, abdomen, that's the abdomen, that's the thorax. That's a problem, he said, because this 90-degree tilt, that wouldn't work. And I'm gonna go into that in a future video, because we're just talking about the faces right now. And I was sort of, I guess there are limitations. Like, for example, these guys would never be able to express themselves. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right in a way. I mean, maybe through their antenna, they might have some, if they're shaking their antenna a lot, maybe that's them nervous, or they cross them like eyebrows to show that they're angry, or they point them right up. Oh, I'm so surprised. Maybe. And that did make me think, okay, there is a range of expression here. There is a possibility here. And I said, it's a little bit like how the human face has a lot of things that is used to express. But on a Vrusk, at least. The Azarians are very human-like, and the Dralicites don't have a face. So, sticking with the Vrusks, the only other face alien that there is, worth discussing for this conversation. They have a limitation. They're not going to be able to express themselves. Kind of like a dog. And he was like, whoa. What do you mean kind of like a dog? And I was like, well, they don't have much in the way of expression in their face. Like, they don't express surprise or anger. Like, you can tell by their wagging of the tail or the barking or the growling. You can tell the mood of a dog. But you can't tell by its face. And interesting timing on this very conversation. Somebody I watch, Snarky Jay Cosplay, she's been doing a lot of deep dives into latest movie trends and that kind of thing, and she did a recent video about how Disney is re-releasing live-action versions, reboots, of their classics, and she has a problem with that. Good video, go recommend you check it out, I'll put a link below. But what she discussed very clearly that is related to our conversation here was the Lion King reboot that came out not too long ago, where they took CGI lions and tried to make them act obviously not real lions, but CGI. They tried to infuse into these CGI versions of lions and all the other animals expression. And she hit upon it perfectly. She said, yeah, they don't have eyebrows. In the cartoon, you could stick an eyebrow on the character, and you could make Mufasa and all the rest of them and Simba really emote because, oh my god, they've got these eyebrows. They can express themselves. But real lions don't have eyebrows. And they tried their best with that CGI version of Lion King, and it just didn't work. These mammals are not really expressing themselves very clearly. So take that and then shove it over to insect creatures like the Vrusks. There's no way that's going to work. So again, I was describing this to Tony about the dogs don't have the ability to express themselves. And he was like, no, that's not true. Dogs have a way of expressing themselves. You just have to look for it. I will fight you on that one in a funny way. He was like, no. You can't tell me that a dog does not express emotions through its face. I was like, And ever since he had that conversation, I remember looking at various dogs of owners, friends that I have and stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, I guess in a way. Again, ignoring the wagging tail or the growling or any of that stuff, just looking at the expression on their face, yeah, it's not the same as the way humans express themselves, but there is emoting to a degree. I'm still a Snarky Jay cosplay. I don't think it's a way that you could tell a story the way Disney wants to tell a story. But you know what? Okay, I'll let that go. So again, I started thinking to myself, okay, so the Vrusks have the problem of this armored face. If you play poker against them, you're going to lose every time because they don't give a tail. They have nothing that expresses there. But again, you've got a bunch of different players all wanting to play this race. There must be scenarios where they want to express anger or not even express it. There must be plot lines where that's important. Like, as a referee, do you make an exception? Oh, wait a minute. Nope, there's a Vrusk. So he can't express this emotion, and therefore he insults the leader of this a group that they've encountered, and now it's all problematic. Maybe you could run with that. But I just thought to myself, no, there's got to be a way around this. Surely the moving of the antennae or the flickering of the eyelids? No, they don't have eyelids. There must be some material there, some mechanisms in that very limited face that allows them to express themselves. Surely. And then, decades after that conversation with Tony Oldfield, I started to notice video games getting really good at infusing into non-animal, non-organic creatures, robots, computer consoles, that kind of thing. There were ways for them to suddenly infuse a bit of personality and a bit of, even outside of video games. Wall-E and Eve, they both express a lot with limited hardware. Now, Eve has like an LCD screen face, so okay, that's a little bit different. But Wall-E himself, just through the shape of the eyes going up or down or whatever, and I think he had little eyebrowy things, I started to think, yeah, there's a way. That must be the way a Vrusk would express himself. Or at least that's a way we can imagine. If somebody wants to play a heroic Vrusk, coming in and saving the day and appreciating, oh yes, I'm very glad that I was able to help you guys out. There must be something in the face, like Wall-E, that shows a more emotion. And then, in video games, more recently, a couple of really good examples came along where I was like, yes! It is totally possible to show emotion with just a limited range of mechanical armor-like chitinous facial limitations. The first one was Wheatley from Portal 2. I played that game, I loved that game, it was awesome. And I remember thinking to myself, holy cow, this is just a little mechanical droid basketball thing with a couple of rings around the central glowing eye. And yet, they managed to really make that character look like he's laughing, look like he's angry, look like he's just like looking around, I don't know what, I didn't do it, that type of thing. And it was just a little ball with a couple of rings of metal. Incredible. That's actually much more limited. Wheatley and Wally, very similar names, actually have less capability in their face than I think Vrusk has, and yet they are expressing themselves very clearly for the audience. Very good. And the final one, the one that I eventually remember seeing ads for, and I thought, this proves that Vrusks can express themselves, surely. I don't play the game, but in Destiny and Destiny 2, there's a lot of stuff regarding Cade. I think that's his name. That's how you pronounce it. I don't know if it's Cade or Cade 6. In researching for this, I came across both versions of the name for this guy. But I remember looking at, there were a whole bunch of ads on TV for Destiny 2 coming out, and this guy was like cracking jokes or, trying to look cool or doing all this stuff. And he has a robotic face. He has probably the same limits in his face as what a Vrusk is capable of. And yet, he's expressing emotions in a way that I'm like, yeah, that's exactly, I get, without even turning the volume up on the commercial, I can tell what that guy's mood, expression, what he's talking about is all about. I was like, yes, Cade, you have proven what Tony Oldfield was sort of discussing 30, 40 years ago. Vrusks are actually capable of expressing emotions. And I think that makes a big difference in what my approach was. I'm sure there must be players and referees who look in the Starfinger's rulebook and they see the Vrusk and they're like, that's going to be a very stoic, cold, Vulcan-esque, I'm not prone to emotional outburst type of race, because they don't have any ability to express emotion. Well, to that I say, check out videos of Wheatley from Portal 2 and also Cade from Destiny, and you will see, no, it is very possible if you have nothing but a mechanical face, bits of very limited moving outer structural hull on your skin, on your face. It is still very possible to express yourself and to have a range of emotion that is on par with what humans can do, and Usarians, etc., going forward. Anyway, so, yeah, despite my opening video there, I think actually I could play poker with a Vrusk, and who knows if I might actually win. We'll find out. I think I'll have a few rounds since I'm in the casino right now. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.